I've had a good opportunity to think over the past couple of days and really just think about a lot of things, as it were. So this is going to be less a reaction. This is going to be more of a kind of deep dive, not deep dive, kind of casual dive into some concerns, some things, even some justifications, as it were, in regards to a few things. So this is definitely going to be a yap session. There will be more regularly scheduled reactions soon. But this is definitely one of those things that I feel I just want to do for myself, if that makes sense. So apologize that it's a little bit different than the regular content. But as the thumbnail and title alludes to, for all intents and purposes, I'm kind of torn between two worlds. And that is a very simple statement in a vacuum, because at the end of the day, it is in a great many things. Whether it's something in regards to, say, firearms, something which I have greatly enjoyed learning about, understanding barrel twist, composition, magwell specs, and now ultimately just feeling disgusted because of how many people I've seen, both in real life and on the internet, who just throw safety to the wayside. You know, it's a certain event was the last in a long chain of interactions where I feel that ultimately I just kind of misunderstand. But not misunderstand as in, like, you know, it's just a misunderstanding, you know, it's fine. This is not how this is supposed to work, because at the end of the day, every time I go to the range, someone, you know, at a clearly closed case range takes a naked firearm from the front bench to the back bench. Someone always flags someone in a store. I see this here in the state of Idaho. So, while that in itself seems like a vacuum, it's really not. And what ended up happening and transpiring fairly recently that really kind of set me down on a kind of reflective, if not depressive mood, was the concept of knowing better, which we've explored at length here on Kip Reacts. The burden of knowing better is something that we see all the time, and I don't really think it's discussed all that much. Even by my own admission, you know, it's easier for me to play the idiot, play the fool sometimes, because at the end of the day, you know, haha funny, right? What's the incentive to appear, you know, I mean, I want to appear well-reasoned and stuff, but what's the incentive to appear intelligent? What's the incentive to, you know, take accountability and responsibility? So, and when I dive into this, let's just look at it from a reaction standpoint. I've had a few creators who I've very clearly showcased they don't want reactions done to their content. But because I know better, reasonably, I can't react to it. But at the same time, there's many reactors who will still react to content despite there being clear evidence that I myself can cite that says, hey, you shouldn't react to this, at least not in this way. So, at the end of the day, that does come down to you can't control other people, but you can obviously control what you do. And going back to our prior argument around firearms, it makes me physically sick to deal with them anymore, and I just choose to move on and do other things with my life. In terms of reactions, you know, I know better. I know better that there's certain people who I just can't react to. That's just the reality of it. Is it fair? Is it not? If you know better and you still do it, I mean, you're clearly the aggressor there, right? Clearly you have caused the issue. You have started the issue, right? But if someone else does it and they genuinely don't know, or even if they do know, but they just choose to ignore it, which are two separate things, what's right and what's wrong there and what's fair? There's not really a good answer. There's not. And this kind of leads into when I can cite things such as, I honestly feel a little trapped by the Fat Electrician reactions I've done, and I'll explore a little bit more specifically why in a bit. But I feel trapped because I don't think they were good. I don't think that I've added anything transformative or additive to them, if I'm being completely honest. Sure, I'm sure some of mine are some of the longest reactions to his on YouTube. But at the end of the day, what do I add? We want to talk about skill and merit. And here's the thing. You have to understand that when I latch onto a concept like that, that is people assuming that people are finally latching on to the concept of at least be aware of what you're talking about, right? If I wanted to talk about urticating hairs with spiders and someone says, oh, I'm actually an arachnologist, awesome. If I want to ask what the China Lake is and someone goes, well, I actually have years of weapons experiences with what the China Lake is, right? Do you have to have a degree or a paper? No. But at least that familiarity. And I think that the concept of that, there's a fundamental misunderstanding, because while I was under the impression that we had a very good opportunity to shy away from the people who either don't know or the people who feign that they don't know, and to really champion people who do know, scientists, people who've been doing something for 30 years, the person who at your work who, has just been there since you can remember, and, they get their job done. They might sit around on shift, but, they know how to get their job done and they do it well. But instead it becomes this weird bargaining chip of picking and choosing. So that should clarify my misunderstanding. Not that I'm asking for any sort of forgiveness. Not that I'm asking for any sort of, pity. No. I don't... No. Nothing like that. I think that there's a fundamental misunderstanding, and I think at the end of the day, it's also ruined an opportunity when it's just supposed to be this something, I don't agree that you're in a position, and, this is the overarching umbrella. Yes, I'm aware that there are conversations to be had in regards to nepotism. I'm aware that there are conversations in regards to people getting jobs without knowing what they're doing. Talk to any tradesman. How many times do they have an apprentice who doesn't know what they're doing and why they even have that job? Talk to the trades. Very easy conversation to have. So that also feeds into why I ultimately feel a lot of reactions I do just are awful. Because I don't have the required information. Yes, from a common sense standpoint, as many people have pointed out, from a common sense standpoint, you don't have to know what you're doing, okay? You're allowed to have an opinion. Your opinion can be wrong, right? And we've explored this in certain reactions like Pokemon Colors, where the official color is this, and it's like, that's objectively just wrong. You can have an opinion. It can just objectively be wrong. You can think that the world is flat. I'm still going to call you wrong, right? You're allowed to come to that conclusion, but realistically, you should be defending your conclusion. Not like, someone actively trying to, engage with you and try to change your opinion. But if I ask you, why is your favorite color blue? Sometimes it can be as simple as I like the shade. Sometimes you'll get an answer if the blue crayons taste the best, right? Be able to explain something. And I think that so many people have it twisted, and that has led to such a large frustration in what I do. Because going to the whole other reactors thing, there are React channels who had 5 minutes to videos that I've reacted to, right? Fat Electrician, prime example, just because he's offhand. 5-minute addition to the video. And it does infinitely better. To me, from objective metrics, that tells me that what I do doesn't have value. It doesn't have skill. It doesn't have merit. It's boring. And that's fine. And then people start saying that it's this weird self-depreciation, it's the self-loathing, and I didn't know you had the authority to speak on that, because it's been a number of people, if I'm being completely honest. And it's led to this feeling of more and more just being torn between worlds and being just absolutely just in this schism, this chasm between people. Because I can tell you, yes, these are the exact metrics for my reaction. And then I can show you objective, factual evidence for something. And even if it's not just reactions, right? Where I can show you objective, factual evidence of something. And people will just dismiss it because I say so. That's not necessarily people who watch me. That's an every person issue. And that's a problem to me. Like, I had to have a conversation, and it was a good faith conversation with someone recently, because they were trying to ask in good faith about insert macro concept here that I don't want to discuss, but they're also like, you know, what do you believe? Like, what do you... If there's so much information and so many different narratives about the same exact subject, what do you believe? And very matter-of-factly, right? I go through, like I do in reactions, I go through the process. Ideally, you want to make sure that, you know, did the event happen? Yes, no. You're going to make sure to get conflicting sources. You're going to make sure to get the most complete picture from accounts, what people are saying, and then recontextualize that information of this is the factual event, what happened around it, and this is my opinion. At the very least, you have done your due diligence. Now, I did also, for transparency's sake, did follow this up with, but, you know, you, individual asking question, work an actual real person job where I sit on a computer all day for all intents and purposes, which has its own challenges, but, like, you work an actual job, right? You don't have that when your 9 to 5 is turned into a 7 to 7 and you're on call 7 days a week and you don't even get holidays off, right? So that leads into and feeds into the stress and burnout of everybody, and why I think in part that people are so willing to dismiss objective evidence. And here's the thing as well. Excuses, I disagree with them. I think there's reasonable excuses, right? Like, oh, you can't come into work because you broke your leg. Fairly reasonable, right? Got sick, okay, fairly reasonable. When it comes to me, I don't ever want, you know, excuses made for me. And I feel I do a damn good job of telegraphing, hi, I'm not military. I don't have military experience in reacting to the fat electrician, but I still have people who come out and say, well, you're just stealing valor. And that pisses me off because there's no consequences for that, especially when I do my damnedest to make sure that I'm communicating that I do not have the specialty here. Hi, I don't know the barrel twist on my M9. I don't know the magwell. I don't know the alloy of the firing pin so I can heat treat it. What authority can I speak to you on firearms, right? But then I'll have people fire back and they try to make it a good faith, like, what do you call it? They try to make it a good faith comparison of like, well, you know, you and your sword handling. And it really gets under my skin because as somebody who actively pulls my strikes, and I've talked about this a number of times, I pull my strikes and lose fights that maybe I shouldn't, but I would much rather this, you know, not land my strike than end up actually hurting someone with a sword thrust. So to me, I feel like all of these things in tandem have led to an environment where I am a walking PR factory. I've been a walking PR factory for 3 years. I absolutely have videos like react to Rock Between Hunger Force Space Kataz, Shenpai, right? Love her content. You know, there's a number of reactions where I'm laughing and having fun. But I had somebody comment that they didn't like that I did the Team Sky video out of order because I retroactively went and watched the Dr. Fuse reactions. And even though I explained it in like the first 30 seconds of the first Dr. Fuse why and apologized for it, like that's the thing, is what is fair? You're torn between two worlds, right? And at the end of the day, right, excuses, going back to the whole excuses thing, sorry. The excuses of, you know, oh, well, Kip, you're just neurodivergent, or, you know, maybe you just need to go seek some therapy, or, you know, you're not military, so you wouldn't know. When did we let excuses dictate lives? It doesn't matter if I'm neurodivergent or not. I expect the same treatment that you would treat anybody else, especially with how I interact, right? I think that it is incredibly disingenuous, and I think that it's really belittling, and it does upset me when it is seen as okay to, when I do my best and habitually communicate better than neurotypical people, and still feel like I'm getting excuses made for me that are outside of my control. Coming back to the concept of control. You can't control other people, that's fine. You can control yourself. But when that control is being wrested from you because Well, you might hate your Fat Electrician reactions because you had nothing of value to it in your own words, but I liked them and I found value in it. Cool. You have found value in it. I'm still allowed to feel a certain way. And then it's justified in regards to reasons why, reasons not. And it really feels like it's just polarized. So, I mean, yeah, this is just the internet. This is just how people work, right? Go to a bar right now, and I mean, the whole room is going to be polarized, let's be honest, right? But, like, I'm really just torn because this is going on 3 years. And, like, this is actual genuine. Like, I'm just tired, man. I'm tired. Like, this is my job. This is my chosen job. But it's very disheartening to bring back things like the Fat Electrician reactions because people do gain value out of it and then watches it immediately. Like, I predict it well. It tanks my algorithm because now it has to compensate for the 100+ videos that just went back and viewers of that, not necessarily mixing with other things like that, and I would like Pokemon and competitive gaming and having to balance that. So once again, further polarized on what people want and what their expectations are. And and I've tried augmenting it. I have people asking me regularly, and reasonably so, right? People ask me regularly, what else do you do? Are you going to do anything other than reactions? I've been doing it, dude. I'm tired. I've been streaming to the best of my ability. I have been, you know, I have 500 videos on the gaming channel. Kip Quips is a thing where I'm going to move the quote-unquote yellow text commentary videos over, right? Like, I mean, I can only do so much if I'm being honest. Like, I don't have any, like, I'm chronically ill or anything like that. I am 3 years into a 6-month situation that is just, I don't see an escape. I don't. And it's impacting my work, and it's impacting my ability to deal with people. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if I can separate and do what I need to and have my own space, and regularly meet up with people, and I've proven this time and time again, I habitually care way less if someone thinks I pause way too much. That's just how that works. Go outside, touch grass. But when touching grass becomes harder and harder to do, and the expectations pile up, and you feel like you're pulled 4 different ways, and you have to be a walking PR factory because the moment you know you say something even remotely wrong, or even that could even remotely be misinterpreted, historical shoe-on head videos, it just goes south. So, I mean, I can tell you from firsthand experience, this is why people get managers. I can tell you from firsthand experience, this is why you'll have VTubers who start chatting less and less to communities or reaching out less and less for collabs. You know, I have to talk about some really heavy stuff. I have to talk about some really big macro issues, and even reaching out to, you know, people like Cav Scout Buddy who reinforce, you know, hey, you can't tackle big issues like this alone. Your job is isolating, but like, because this is my job, you can only do so much, right? You can eventually you just sit there and go, I've been waiting for this stuff for the past 10 years. So use it as a cautionary tale to YOLO, if it will, within reason, to find your own expertise, find your own meaning in life, and do what you can within reason, right? You want to go on a trip to Greece, go to Greece, right? You want to pick up another language, right? But I think I can speak for many people across all different walks of life that we're all just tired right now. And I think that leads me into another point of just feeling caught between worlds, because this really is it. It's the scene from Naruto where Obito is the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails, and he's having to pull himself back together because of it's just messing with his brain. Some days it does feel like that. I'm not military. I'm not. I will never claim to be military. Sure, maybe I'll make the odd joke about, man, if I was in the military, I'd be mopping rain because I'm just awful. Sure, and I tried to do that in very good faith, because at the end of the day, I'm not military. What authority do I have to speak on it? And I have to be really reserved in a lot of ways because, and I've talked about this in Scalagram reactions, I've talked about this in reactions before, some of the happiest moments I've ever had are in the middle of combat. are in the middle of sparring, are when two blades meet and you feel a single second, a fraction of a second, expand into an infinity, and you can feel both of you and your opponent's blade, you can feel everything that you're doing, and you effectively have just foresight into your next attack to go for game, right? It's actually why I really enjoyed Xenos from Final Fantasy XIV, because it's not a bit. I can tell you firsthand, I genuinely don't understand people. I don't understand a lot about people. I try my best, and I know for a fact I've definitely fooled people, especially in prior jobs I've held, where someone goes, wow, wait a minute, you're neurodivergent? You don't seem like it. Proceeds to, yes, shall I do an autism for you, my lady? Shall I name every train to ever exist? I don't have the traintism, but point being, right, the joke. Like, and that's the thing is, who can you find who has similar interests like that, whose very soul is lit on fire by the concept of combat, right? Military? There's certain things that I will never engage in the military, and reasonably so, right? There's a reason why Cav Scout GOG exists. There's a reason why the branches can say certain things to each other, and especially within the branches. And I have no place amongst them, even if I feel that, combat is one of the biggest things, the biggest driving force, the biggest source of dopamine and serotonin that I can get. But at the same time, your average person just can't understand that. And you can kind of liken it to, like, when something spicy happens, right, with someone else they like, or they're, a hobby they've had for the past 20 years, and they did it with their father, and, it just brings that sense of just wonder and entertainment and infinite possibility. But because you're dealing with a weapon, a sword, if you will, it's going to turn a lot of people off. So once again, torn between worlds, right? When I do veteran content, when I talk about things like that, that's with the expectation that I'm not going to ever get anything back, and I don't want anything back. It's the expectation that, like, at minimum, it's just a job that you guys chose to do. What authority do I have to speak on that? I can look at some pretty common sense things like, you mean someone got promoted because of them knowing somebody, because of nepotism, and not because they went through all the steps, they went through all the training? Wait, that seems pretty bad to me. I'm sorry, you were promised this benefit? I mean, that's what the job said. You were supposed to be promised this benefit, so therefore you should be promised that benefit. It's just pretty reasonable, common sense stuff. So, I guess, all in all, because I've been yapping for 20 minutes at this point, if I'm being honest. Like, and I feel we've covered a lot of ground, and it does feel good in some aspect to, like, offer some sort of clarity, to offer some sort of something, right? Because people definitely, I know that there's the frustration, and I know that there's the why are you the way you are, Kip? Why do you do the things? And I'm just strange. It's not my tism. I'm not my diagnosis. I have I wouldn't even say eccentric interests. I just think differently than a lot of people, and I do my best to accommodate as many people as possible. And I definitely feel like I do an incredibly bad job because I'm combative. Because after the 17,000th time you hear you pause too much, you're just like, then go find someone else to watch. If social etiquette dictates on the internet that someone does something wrong, you move on. I also came from an era where you don't want to watch a show, you don't want to engage in something, you don't want to do something, then don't do it. And I don't feel I've done anything to really earn anyone's trust, to earn any good rapport. I'm a derivative. What is one of the biggest things that people know me for? And I've seen this in funny Purple app chat. Hi, I saw your Fat Electrician reactions. Hi, been watching your reactions for a while. I'm just a cheap knockoff derivative that has objective metrics to show that me yapping for an extended period of time, rather than just letting a video play and adding only 5 minutes, is not what people want to watch. And I am hard on myself, and I will continue to be hard on myself because I've gotten as far as I have because I'm hard on myself. More people should be hard on themselves, not to the insane degree I am, right? More like, you know, no one should be looking at themselves and saying, if I cannot handle a firearm perfectly and execute everything to perfection, why am I holding it, right? That's a little, self-admittedly, that's a little, like, too much, right? But more people need to be self-critical, and more people need to be, if anything, just self-reflective. And the part that I don't understand as well, and this is kind of where I'm leading into the wrap-up as well, like, when someone does something, like if I do a thing, if I make a quote about Brandon Herrera pointing a, you know, pistol at his hand, the action happened. You can't dispute the action happened, right? And it's the follow-up that I don't understand from people, because being torn between two worlds, you have people who are simultaneously split between the action happened, it should never be forgiven, and the action happened, growth can happen from this, but don't do it the fuck again, right? And that's a fairly, the latter is the more reasonable take, but I mean, and then in itself, it's just going to be a political discussion, a political commentary. At the end of the day, like I always say, come to your own educated conclusion. But even that feels like, I think people might think I'm disingenuous, or people will view that as, well, this Kip man is imposing this answer, therefore, you know, tired. In terms of things, I don't know what things are gonna go. If I'm feeling honest, I feel a little trapped. I feel that, especially even when you do everything correctly, I've outlined things that I feel are my faults and you know, missteps. And I think there's many people who would say that I've grown a lot over the past 3 years. But even with growing the past 3 years, and just coming to the understanding that you can do everything right. It's the Kentucky ballistics effect. You can do everything correctly, and that slap round is still gonna nail you in the face. You can do everything correctly. You can be the most positive person. You can be incredibly progressive. You can communicate like an adult. And it only scales as well as the people around you are willing to communicate. And so, yeah, I'm a little conflicted right now. I feel that I don't really have worth. I feel that I'm just a knockoff derivative. I feel that I've done a lot of growth. And I don't know where to go from here. And I don't actually see a way out at this point. But I think that's just the Depresso Espresso talking, and I wanted to just kind of make this, I guess, more for me than anything, and those who are actually curious, like, you know, why does this guy do the things that he does? Why is he so hard on himself? Why does he have this expectation that the moment he does something wrong, someone's gonna try to cancel his ass? Because is paranoid, and that's the big thing, is people try to diagnose me with paranoia, which, knock it the fuck off. As paranoid as people want to say I am, I feel that I do bring receipts to most things. I feel that when I come to a conclusion, and I'm able to explain a conclusion that has more merit than I say so because I say so. But I guess that's just a fundamental misunderstanding, because you can do everything correctly, and you can do everything right, and you can bring receipts and sources and still just be wrong and still come out negative. So, if you stuck this out, thank you. Thank you for listening to the ramblings of someone who, I don't know, dingus on the internet. Hopefully this answered some questions. Hopefully, this comes across as a good faith explanation on some things. Hopefully this comes across as me not fishing for pity or sympathy points. because that's not what this is. And I am putting my foot down in regards to, I don't ever want to see somebody trying to justify or defend anything I do because Lamau, he's neurodivergent. I have never used it as a shield, and I will never use it as a shield. And it genuinely makes me uncomfortable. But come to your own conclusions. Come to your own educated conclusion. And if you're going to stick around, hopefully you enjoy the content that there is to come. I'm trying to figure out what to actually react to and do stuff to. I'm trying to put out my own content in regards to Let's Plays, VODs, commentary soon-ish on Kip Quips. Even had a couple edited works over on Kiz and a Kip, that channel. And thank you for watching.